This is a Jermyn Street Theatre audio introduction for Napoleon en Petite Pantomime by John Savornin and David Eaton, directed by John Savornin and Benji Sparing. Napoleon runs from the 21st of November 2024 to the 5th of January 2025 at Jermyn Street Theatre, located at 16B Jermyn Street, London, SW1Y 6ST, an intimate basement theatre of 70 seats. This introduction is intended to give visually impaired theatregoers an advanced description of the set, the characters, their costumes, and other visual elements before coming to see the play. In an effort to describe the play's evolving visuals, it will contain some minor spoilers. The play lasts approximately 2 hours, including a 15-minute interval. Programme. The overview on the Jermyn Street website begins with, "It's time to Bonaparte! Napoleon storms Jermyn Street this Christmas. Marshal your forces and round up les roast beef. It's time for some historic hilarity. Join the most dictatorial of petit hommes as he dons disguises among the bourgeoisie to war with Wellington. Will the grandiose general overcome his fear of cats to become emperor? Will the dodgy duke find a name for his new beef pie? We reunite with Charles Court Opera following our award-winning Odyssey, a heroic pantomime, to put the iconic into Napoleonic. Bring les enfants terribles, give the vieille moustache a night out, and join in with a legendary part of Christmas in London. This boutique panto promises to bring a smile to the faces of Les Miserables." The set, space, and visual elements. The walls of the stage are decorated in striped red, trimmed with undulating gold and topped by lit arches, the lighting in which will change dramatically to suit the mood. There are 2 red velvet-covered doors to backstage. The one on your left is topped by a royal R and crown, and the one on your right topped by a large gold N with laurels. On your left, mounted on the wall in a frame, are 3 crossed fencing foil-style swords. Beneath them stands a lectern or dock behind which sits the musical director, David Eaton, a dark-haired, bearded white man with a keyboard, mic and laptop. Other frames mounted on the stage walls left to right contain pictures of a cow's face, a gold eagle statuette, a miniature ship's wheel, a selection of huge maps, a finely dressed lady, Marie Antoinette in a purple gown, a large oval portal with a dark curtain hanging behind it, and finally a 3-dimensional model ship, which hangs on the right side of the stage above a small enclosure for a musician. A fair-haired, slim, bearded white man with dark-rimmed glasses, dressed in a black shirt, with electric, acoustic and bass guitars. Centre stage, the maps, depicting mainly political borders, include a large framed picture of the Horn of Africa and the Mediterranean, then seemingly falling from it, covering the wall down to the ground, a map of Europe, and spreading across the floor, a map of Britain and of France. The framed map is in fact a hatch that will open, often to reveal members of the cast, often singing in chorus, like at 18 minutes in, but will also feature elements of scenery that depict changing locations. These are 2 ships at sea for the journey to France, a porthole window for the journey back, the Houses of Parliament, Tower Bridge and St. Paul's for the scenes in London, a lavish royal garden populated by zoo animals, and finally, towards the show's end, the crown jewels, a huge crown covered in gaudy jewels, the front set of which is detachable. The other, smaller frames on the wall will also open, and characters' faces will appear through them during songs, and pass certain props through them, like in the Let Them Eat Cake number, when a pink cake is tossed through the Marie Antoinette portrait, after which it is replaced by a portrait of Nelson, or when a pair of blue bloomers appear towards the end. The large oval portal is in itself a kind of door, where the more ethereal characters will appear and even enter and exit the stage. Many other visual gags are about to be explained by the cast, but one moment requires special mention here, and that is at 40 minutes, just before the interval, when 2 cut-out black and white cows are wheeled out on trolleys, each with a rubber glove udder and a small plastic bucket underneath. The cast interviews. Napoleon is played by Matthew Kellett.
Hi there, I'm Matthew Kellett. I'm 39 years old. Him. I'm white British. I was born in London. I've got brown hair, which is in a side parting. I've got green eyes and I am 5'4", which I discovered today is actually shorter than Napoleon was in real life. I speak in a French accent at the very beginning of the show, and then as a way of sort of mocking the monolingualism of British people, I switch into a British accent for supposedly their benefit. I come on dressed as what I think people would recognise as Napoleon straight away, which is, the large bicorn hat and a long military trench coat, which is embellished with all sorts of French details. The tricolour, the blue, the red, white and blue can be seen throughout the costume. I've got a red, white and blue cummerbund. I've got red, white and blue on my shoes. And I've got some stripy socks, which includes some of those colours too. Pretty unmistakable, I think. So I appear as Napoleon amongst his troops effectively, and they come on with metal helmets with spikes up at the top and long, thick military coats, and we're all carrying rifles. But as it's a pantomime, we're all in fact they're just baguettes. It's made very clear from the beginning that Napoleon is the baddie of this piece. So yes, as soon as the opening numbers finish, there's a big lighting change, a big music sting, a big laugh, and into sort of mocking the audience. So straight away we know where we are. Napoleon is the baddie here. A key plot point of the piece is that Napoleon has the hand of Horatio Nelson. He, in this story, has recovered after the Battle of Trafalgar and now carries around with him. So for various points in the show, he pulls out the right hand of Nelson, which is just a hand basically severed at sort of the forearm with a little bit of bone sticking out that he can just grab and wave around and sort of taunt the audience with. In the second half, Napoleon and the ghost of Marie Antoinette go off to England. Nelson's hand is stolen from them, and they go off to England to try and get it back. But of course they can't. Napoleon and Marie Antoinette can't just walk around the streets of London without being discovered. So they do their best to disguise themselves as British citizens. But unfortunately for them, the best they manage to come up with is Marie Antoinette dresses as an English rose, and Napoleon goes as Britannia, effectively. So that's the trident and the cloak. And instead of a British shield, he has got a handbag with a sequined handbag with the Union Jack, and he looks ludicrous, actually. There's a breastplate and a golden helm. Then a show full of disguises. Napoleon then later needs to infiltrate King George's bedroom. The best way he can manage that is to go as a footstool. So he straps a footstool to his back and crawls around the stage in the hope of not being discovered. Yes, unfortunately for Napoleon, no one realises that he's there. So he gets thrown around the room a lot as the footstool, as just a piece of furniture that no one pays any mind to. So he keeps getting thrown around and boshed on the head and knocked out and attacked in various different ways. In this show, that I mentioned earlier that all the rifles are baguettes, so all weaponry is replaced by some sort of French confectionery. So when I pull out a dagger, which I eventually attempt to stab King George with, it is in fact just a small croissant. Yes, a newspaper that appears briefly, Le Soleil, which is French, I hope, for the sun, and also a small piece of cake, which is a reference to Marie Antoinette's Let Them Eat cake, a small piece of pink cake, which is just foam, really. So yes, Napoleon takes opportunity where he can to get. He's famous for being a short man, although of course he wasn't actually that short really in real life. But in the show, he takes the opportunity to stand on a crate when he can to elevate himself above everybody else. As the baddie, he sort of snakes his way around the stage a lot and often likes to get right up in the audience faces and pick people out individually, and sort of moves around the stage a bit like a sort of viper, I suppose, looking for his next victim.
King George III is played by Elliot Broadfoot.
Hi, my name is Elliot Broadfoot. I'm 27 years old. He, him, mixed race of British and Caribbean heritage. I have pale pinky skin with medium length curly brown and blonde hair, which sits either side of my face. Black eyebrows and greeny blue eyes. I'm 5'8", of a large build. So, King George III's first costume is a multicoloured, stripy night dress with reds, golds, yellows, blues, and a huge red sparkly cape with little fluffy trim and a big thick faux white fur collar, and a nightcap, which is also stripy like the nightshirt, with a big white furry ball on the end. And he also carries a sceptre, which is gold, and on the top of it, it's got a big red ruby and some blue sapphires around the side. So white bloomers with a frilly trim and Union Jacks around the bottom of the bloomers too, with knee-high bright yellow socks and red and gold sparkly slippers. I lift up my night dress on several occasions to show off my bloomers to the audience. When we head to France in disguise, King George decides to dress himself as a French frog, in which I wear a green beret with two eyes sitting on top of it and a miniature gold crocheted crown, a green long-sleeved tailcoat with sparkly trims round the wrists and a sparkly collar, and also a giant green and silver bow that sits around my neck. So during one of the duets in Act 2, I run about the stage with a bubble gun surrounding the Duke of Wellington in bubbles, and then I throw a big handful of gold confetti over the Duke of Wellington, and then I appear through the hatch in the back of the set with two cow sock puppets on each of my hands, and they sing along with the duet. Once we've arrived in France, I disappear to go and find a swimming pool, and then reappear through the hatch with a large light blue swimming inflatable round my neck, which has a giant sloth face on it. Towards the end of Act 2, after a fight with Napoleon, I reappear in a light blue and silver nightdress with a much smaller cape that's white and furry that sits round my neck, and a nightcap that matches the silver and blue material that has a gold crocheted crown around the top of it, and the same sceptre that I appear with during the rest of the show. I appear inside the oval portrait, yes. So King George is a very boisterous character. He bursts through the curtains to enter the stage a lot, with lots of wide kind of thrashing movements. I throw my arms around and swing the sceptre, pointing it at various people in the audience. And during the first song that King George sings, he has an air guitar solo with our onstage guitarist Alex, where I use the sceptre to mimic the guitar actions that he is making. But yes, lots of jumping about, try and fill the stage as much as possible with my body. Very, very, very large movements. King George has a love interest in the show, and often when they see each other, there's lots of my knees buckle, and I pull the sceptre in very close to my face in a coy way, lots of fluttering eyes towards Marie, and often when I'm sat down around her, my hand is on my forehead like a Renaissance painting. Yes, at the top of Act 2, when we are sailing back to England from France during our sea shanty, George throws me, King George, the hand of Nelson, and I play it like a flute. And also in the top of Act 2, when we're sailing back to England, I do a very rigorous and jumpy river dance, where I attempt to emulate my best impression of Michael Flatley. Lots of kicking my legs, and I end it in a Usain Bolt-esque pose pointing to the sky.
Hello everybody, my name's Jenny Jacobs and I play the part of the Duke of Wellington in Napoleon Un Petit Pantomime. I am 42 years old, I identify as she, her, I am of white British descent and I have strawberry blonde hair that comes down past my shoulders. I'm 5'8", quite skinny and a little tiny bit muscular in build. Now, I don't look like that at all when I'm dressed as the Duke of Wellington, when I'm welly. When I first come on stage dressed as the Duke of Wellington, I am in a lovely black felt wool hat with a lovely big sort of feathery thing on top. It makes me very tall, makes me much taller than I actually am. I'm also in a red military jacket with lots of shiny buttons down the front, which is very difficult to do up backstage in the quick changes. I've got a flouncy shirt on underneath that. It's sort of a creamy colour. And my trousers that I wear are cream with a lovely little detail up each side in a sort of gold sequin. And I've got a pair of yellow Wellington boots. Underneath the hat, I am in a wig. It's sort of like a brown curly number, a little bit, I would say it's in the theme of Bridgerton. Does that make sense? The historian sock puppet that we use, it's not actually a sock, it's a full puppet. His name is Professor Cholmondeley Smythe, and he is the historian of the piece, which you actually only see at the beginning because we deviate hugely from history. Mr. Cholmondeley Smythe has sort of fluffy white hair. He's got sort of a wide, oval, peachy face, very large eyes. He's got a pair of glasses on that have recently been bedazzled and bejazzled in sequins. And I think he's got a little sequin tie as well, which is very in keeping with the panto. But other than that, he's very, very smart. And he really does know what he's talking about. Monsieur de Boeuf. So halfway through the panto, the Duke of Wellington decides to disguise himself as a French citizen. And in his mind, the best thing to do is to disguise himself as a French chef, and that is Monsieur de Boeuf. So one of the quick changes that we have, we run off stage and we get changed very quickly in the middle of a number and then come back on. And Monsieur de Boeuf has a chef's hat with a little French rosette on the front, a little furry moustache, which is very difficult to put on in the middle of a quick change. He's also wearing an apron, which has, instead of the pocket on the front of the apron, it's actually a set of udders, sequined pink udders, in which he keeps his garlic for cooking. And everything that he wears at that point is white and pink. So when I am playing the Duke of Wellington disguised as Monsieur de Boeuf, we have a number in the show called Beef Pie, and we are making a beef Wellington essentially throughout the whole number. And I at one point have to pick up a Tesco bag which is full of lots of different implements to make the beef pie. So I hand out a sort of pink sequin cooking bowl, a whisk. I'm not really sure what the whisk is for, but it was the best thing to... it looked best on stage. A red sequin baster, and I think I give Matt Kellett, who plays Napoleon, a huge pepper grinder, which has sort of been sprayed gold. And then I'm sort of the one left holding a baking tray that has a big slab of meat on it, which we're going to turn into this fantastic beef Wellington. So by the end of the number... Chef de Boeuf removes this fantastic, spectacular beef Wellington by the end. Later on in the show, we actually open the second act with a sort of sea shanty where the Duke of Wellington is on the ship, and rather than grabbing an instrument for the sea shanty, he grabs a bit of ribeye steak and starts slapping it about as a sort of accompaniment, as percussion. I think when I'm playing the Duke of Wellington, he's a much more high status. So I think that my posture is very upright. I tend not to move my shoulders and my torso around too much. I'm not loose in my upper body. So everything is very sort of solid. The way that he walks is very purposeful. His facial expressions are very straight and severe. And I think most of the acting that I do with the Duke of Wellington is through my eyes rather than the rest of my face. So he's expressive in his eyes and not really much anywhere else. But when he becomes Monsieur de Boeuf, Chef de Boeuf, because he's sort of being a little bit French and a little bit more free with his movements, Chef de Boeuf tends to be a little bit more Muppet-like, I would say. A little bit like a puppet, and it's much more loose. There's more sort of actions going on with the arms, and he's sort of flapping around a lot because it's that sort of Ainsley Harriott, ready, steady, cook in the kitchen type of thing. There's lots of hands, there's lots of gesticulation involved in that character.
Marie Antoinette is played by Rosie Strobel.
Hi, my name's Rosie Strobel. I'm 42 years old. I'm she, her. I am white British, mainly Welsh in heritage. I've got black hair, I've got hazel eyes, and I'm 5'2". So I play Marie Antoinette. Marie's got a fantastic wig, which is made of a white foam material. So it's incredibly light. It's like a sort of Mr. Whippy ice cream. It's very, very tall, and it's got purple bows in it and lots of decorative items. And it's really nice because it's very light to put on and carry around on my head. And it looks quite fabulous and dramatic. I've got a dress, which is corseted down the front, which is purple in a sort of brocade with lacy sleeves and a little trim of diamonds all over it. So it's quite extravagant. I've also got a pearl necklace and a diamond necklace and another pearl necklace, which is very, very long. So she is bejewelled and looks very dramatic and very regal. The makeup that I'm wearing is very, very pale in colour because I am actually playing the ghost of Marie Antoinette, which is revealed immediately. So she is a ghost. So it's just a slightly paler foundation, dark eyebrows, and then purple and peach eyeshadow, sort of sparkly, which matches the dress. So it all ties in. Also a purple lipstick and a very, very light pink cheek as well. During my number, there are 3 headless nobles. Well, what they are is they are only heads. The rest of their bodies are in a sort of crushed velvet dark red material, but they also have a small axe at their neck. So it's to try and create the illusion that they are just floating heads. They also have sort of little white bonnets on as well. They look quite funny. But yeah, it's to try and create the illusion that they are just floating heads around the stage. When the ghost of Marie Antoinette first appears, she comes out of a gold oval frame, a large frame. It's a sort of a portal. And as she comes out, there's a blue lighting stake, but also there's some red, which does tie in quite nicely and suit the character with the purple dress and that aesthetic. And it frames the character really, really nicely. And it should be a bit of a surprise that she's coming out and quite an exciting moment. When the ghost of Marie Antoinette visits England, she turns up in a disguise, as does Napoleon, but Marie's disguise is an English rose. So it's a headpiece that is red petals with a green trim. So they're all spread around my face. So my face is in the middle of the flower. I also have green long gloves that have little felt thorns on them to make me seem a bit spikier. And I have a boa. Like, it's not a feather boa, it's made of a sort of shiny chiffon fabric, and it's got roses stitched into it. So it's a big head that's a rose with petals coming out, and then roses around me in a chiffon with a green glove. Marie moves around in a very grand style. Lots of extended arms, expecting people to kiss her hand any moment, I expect. Also, because the wig isn't that firmly attached, the foam wig that I'm wearing, I tend to do curtsies as opposed to bows. But the fact that that's an element has meant that I do stay upright quite a lot, which suits the character really well. So it's sort of, the costume has influenced a little bit how I'm standing as well as the character herself.
Georgina is played by Amy J. Payne.
Hi, my name is Amy J. Payne. I am 42 years old. My pronouns are she, her. I am white. My hair is dyed blonde with some browny bits in it, and it's naturally curly. It's quite long at the moment. It comes like down past my shoulders. I've got brown eyes. I am 5'5.5", 5'6", which is about 166 centimetres, and I'm medium-ish build. So my character Georgina, when she first appears, she appears as her sort of true self. She is the heir to the British throne, so she has a nice dress on, which is sort of the period, a kind of empire line kind of dress, which is in a sort of classic panto way, kind of very brightly coloured. So it's like orange with like big blue bits and lots of fun ribbons and things. And I wear a little tiara, which is super nice for me because I never ever get to be a princess, so that's nice. But very quickly she realises in order to make the changes that she wants to make in the world, she needs to go undercover and disguise herself as a male. So the next time we see her, she turns up in a pantoized version of a British Army uniform of the time, the sort of red jacket thing, white trousers, which again have been pantoized, so they've got like lots of lovely sparkly bits on it. Yes, and I don't know, honestly, I do not know what it's called, but I have a sort of cross thing which has got loads of sequins on it, which I think was probably there on real army uniforms to sort of stick bits of, I don't know, guns or something in. I'm not really sure. But yeah, there's that. So there's a sort of cross-fronted thing as well, which is also really fun and glittery. I try my best with my limited acting skills to go from being a fairly forthright, but definitely female princess to a male. So I spent a lot of time with my hands behind my back and a more sort of military posture, I suppose. Yes, and Georgina, when she's as the princess, is a bit more fluid movement. Yeah. There's then an extra disguise on the disguise, which is when we go undercover into France. And then I put on a stripy, it's very, very not subtle at all, kind of typical French, what's the word, sort of archetype costume. So it's a blue and white striped jacket. It's got cloves of garlic sewn onto it, and I wear a beret which is sort of an orangey, burnt orange colour, and that also has a bit of garlic on the top of it as its sort of bobble thing. Yeah, and otherwise, I mean, that's a really, really quick change. So that just one jacket comes off essentially, and I had a hat as a soldier as well. I always have a hat on, which is it's a black hat with a feather. Well, it becomes a beret. Yeah, there we are. Those are the three costumes and the three personas, three layers of Georgina. Yeah. So at one point in the show, as we're beginning to edge closer to the conclusion, I say, "Oh, look, sir," and the prop isn't there, and then the prop appears out from behind the set. One of the fellow actors opens a door, chucks it out. But yes, they sort of appear in a bit of a comedy way. Just one of those panto things where we pretend it's gone wrong, but it hasn't really. And the bloomers are blue and frilly. They're quite clearly French. And they have inside the name and address of the owner.
For any other information, please call 020 7287 2875 or visit the website at germanstreettheatre.co.uk.